family, it's Dr. Sabrina here, the people expert, and you have been watching I Am Father from a mother's perspective, because I am a mother.
I am Father.
Back against the wall, head still high, push through it all. Father am I, lead by example, but still I gotta follow. Value your seeds, let's promise them tomorrow. Forever I stand, it's never to be a bother. Forever I'm man, forever I'm father. Forever I stand, it's never to be a bother. Forever I'm man, forever I'm father.
My name is Alan Irvin, and this is I Am Father. Thanks for tuning in for another episode of I Am Father. Got an opportunity, and I believe it's a blessed opportunity to sit here with Dr. Sabrina Jackson. She's an author. She came down and on another interview, and came across paths, and I was like, listen, got to get you in on this interview because she has a book that I want to talk to you about.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Well, I tell you, I know from doing the research, I mean, the layers that you have on you is much deeper than I can give the audience as far as who you are. Tell the audience, if you don't mind, who you are, what you do.
Okay. Hi, I am Dr. Sabrina Jackson, and my tagline is that I'm a people expert. I help people with people, even if that person is themselves, because too often we think it's somebody else with the problem, and it's really us standing in the need.
A lot of times, yeah.
Oh, a lot of times.
That's the thumb pointing back at you, right?
Yes, absolutely. And so I do that in a myriad of ways. I am a clinical therapist by trade. I am a life coach. I am a speaker. I'm a trainer. I'm an author. I'm a mama. That's a whole talk show by itself. And I'm a TV and radio personality. I've just moved into the lane of having my own clothing line. Super excited about that. So that's me. And I've been in about 8 movies.
8?
8.
Wow. So the only thing I actually knew about her was you set up nonprofits.
I do. I have a company called the Nonprofit Creators.
Okay.
Where I help people create their 501c3.
And you helped me create my 501c3.
Yes. And so I've never submitted an application since the 80s.
What does that mean?
Been approved.
Oh, okay. Well, good stuff. Hey, that's great.
Yeah, so I've done hundreds of them.
Okay. So you came down here, though, and I'm going to get to the book in a second because I really want to get into these 12 laws here. But the reason you came down, where are you from?
I am from Detroit, Michigan, the Motor City, Motown, where all the singers come from, where cars were created, all of that. That's where I'm from, Detroit, Michigan. Okay.
And what brought you down here?
I came down for a friend. She has a show called Atlanta Live, and it's a Christian-based show, and so I was her guest, me and Keith Wonderboy Johnson. So he was the musical guest, and then I did the interview with her about my model that I created called Essential Colors. Essential Colors is a personality assessment model created to help you understand how you're wired, but then more importantly, how to deal with people who are wired differently. Because I always says the number one problem people have is other people. Because if I'm a chemical engineering is never my issue. It's the people I have to do it with.
Right. It's always the people. So I was watching that interview, and one of the things that really intrigued me is the way you related the colors with the 4 Gospels in the Bible.
Oh, yeah. And so one of the things, when I created Essential Colors, I created it specifically for the body of Christ.
Okay.
Because I am certified in almost every personality models, whether it's Myers-Briggs, the DISC, just, all of them. But I like colors because colors are easy to remember. And so as I was doing these different models, people would ask me, could you come and do it at my church? Well, I was certified in a model called True Colors.
Okay.
And True Colors is a secular model, and it did not have things in it that you could take into the church house. Like the cards had dice on them, had wizards on them, couldn't take that in the body. And so I created and started studying scripture to look at what the word said about character type and personality type. And so I created, at that time, what I was going to be calling biblical true colors. And I wanted to have it up under the umbrella of True Colors. Well, True Colors said that they weren't interested in that market. They weren't interested in the Christian market at all. Do what you want to do.
So what is True Colors? I mean, give us the credibility behind True Colors.
Well,
you said
True
as
Colors,
if it's a definition of something.
Oh, yeah. True Colors is a model that was created by a man by the name of Don Lowry in 1978. And he took another model that was created by a man named David Kersey. And he took his model because David Kersey's model, the 4 types, he used Greek mythology to have the titles of the 4 types. Well, that wasn't very user-friendly because people couldn't pronounce them, much less spell them. And so the first thing Don did when he met David was take his test and was floored by how accurate the information was. And so he then said, we got to make this easier. So he was the first to apply color to the model, and that was back in 1978, and it's been done everywhere. But his model is more in the entertainment realm because he himself was a writer for sitcoms at the time. And so he really wanted people to just get it without taking a test. So he came up with little plays and vignettes. And one of the actors that used to work for him was Wayne Brady.
Okay.
Wayne Brady they would act out the different colors. So they would have like a couple, and one couple would have one a blue and the other couple would have on a green, because in the model, greens and blues are opposite. And so the first time I ever did True Colors, it fascinated me. And so I went immediately and got certified in it. And I started doing it and was doing it for corporations, and I was always ordering their material. So one day they called me and they were like, who is this person ordering all this stuff and sending it to McDonald's and sending it to Burger King?
Right.
You know, GE was a client. And so I, at first, didn't even want to talk to them because I was like, oh, I'm just ordering your stuff. I'm certified in your model. I'm good.
Right.
But then they started a international conference, and I was their first keynote speaker. And so when I spoke, Don was in the audience, Don Lowry. And he came up to me afterwards and said, you do my stuff better than I do. And so he offered me an opportunity to come to Laguna Beach, where he lived, and to help him shape and create the Love Styles portion of the model. And I did. I moved there. I stayed there for a year. I taped all types of, videos and training videos. But that's when people kept asking me would I do colors for their church. And their materials weren't church friendly. So then I decided to study scripture and found out some fascinating things. So Christ is the only perfect blend of all 4 types. There's times when he's blue, there's times when he's gold, there's times when he's green. He turned over the table, so there's times when he's orange. And so what the Holy Spirit began to speak to me was that it's not enough for people to learn their color scheme. It is then time for you to become more balanced, to become more blended. So whatever you're high in, you need to bring that down. Whatever you're low in, you need to bring that up, because the more blended you are, the better you are at navigating all your relationships, and not just the ones that are easy for you, because they're natural conflictual places in our how we're wired.
So it sounds like you truly believe in life is a life of balance, moderation.
Oh my goodness, I truly believe that life is, you gotta have, that's why God created it the way he did. You gotta have a little bit of everything. And if you oversaturate in one area, you're definitely gonna be weak in another area. And so and to enjoy this whole thing and to live it out the best way possible is to really be balanced. And so I ask the question all the time for people that are biblical scholars, have you ever asked yourself why there are 4 gospels that tell the same story? And they're written to a different color. So Matthew is the only book that gives the lineage of Christ. It's the order book. It's the gold book. Mark was written to the Romans, and oh my goodness, how orange were they? So that's the orange book.
And orange means what?
Orange
mean...
Goals are organized, structured, dependable. They love rules. They love order. So they represent the control and order of Christ. Then Oranges represent the risk taking, the all eyes on me, the competitive, the I got this, that type of personality, and they're commanding in their personality. So it's like, oh yeah, I'm here. Recognize, and they're not apologizing for it. And so then the next color is green. Green people are heady people. They're visionaries. They're innovative, and they don't necessarily like to be around people. They like their time alone. And so that's Luke. Luke was written to the lawyers and to the doctors and the tax collectors, the smart people, basically.
Smart people, yeah.
And then lastly is John, and John is the blue book. And blues are compassionate, feeling people. They value relationships more than anything. And so
let me guess, you're blue. You got your blue dress on. You ready?
What? I am a little blue, but I'm not totally blue. I'm tied, actually.
So you could be a combination of...
We all have all 4 colors in us. So if they go to my website, sabrinajackson.com, you can take the test. And so we all have all 4 colors in us. They're just at different levels. So then when you find the more blended you are, the more balanced you are, the better you are at navigating all of your relationships. And then I say in the Christian world, the more balanced you are, the more Christ-like you're becoming. Because the word tells us is by loving kindness have I drawn them. You can't draw people when you're repelling them. And sometimes just your natural way of being is an opposite of somebody else, and it's repelling them. And so it has been a fascinating ride for me, because I remember I did a group of bishops, did colors with them, and a bishop called me the next day, and he was crying. Floored me, because I was so nervous about doing it with all these, pillars in the gospel and bishops, and he says, you changed my life yesterday. And I says, really, Bishop, what'd I do? He says, when you explained the different types, it helped me to understand my type and how I was naturally repelling a particular type. And he had an example of a couple who was at his church, and they kept coming to him with new ideas, new ways of doing things, and he would shut them down all the time. Nope, that's not my vision, nope. And so they eventually left. And he said that he was like, well, they wasn't supposed to be here anyway. He says, but after the explanation...
Well, a lot of pastors and bishops believe that. So they don't have a problem with sending people away, because it's like, well, I'm not his pastor, or I'm not her pastor.
But you are designed to pastor different types of people. Okay. You are not designed to pastor just people like you. Wouldn't that be a boring church?
Which is true. Definitely true. I tell you this, though. We're talking about fatherhood right now. And these colors, I got 1,000 questions for you, right? Because I'm thinking about, one of the reasons we started this podcast is because, there's no true book or manual on how to be a father, because we believe every seed is different. Even in your own household, you got 4 kids. Those 4 kids are different, and you got to learn how to raise those kids to be the father they are going to be, So thinking about colors, thinking about fatherhood, talking about fatherhood, I wonder if there's a color scheme for different types of fathers.
Of course. I have a piece for parents, for your parenting style, based on how you are. So as a blue parents are much more relational. They hug. They want to find out how you're feeling. It's some fathers and parents, and it's not a gender thing. It's a type thing. And so a lot of times people say, well, no, men do that. No, it's a type that does that. So there are types that are sensitive. That's a man. And so people think that there are types that are very nurturing. That's a man. And so that is not a gender thing. It is definitely a type thing. So blue parents are much more feeling. They want to know how you feel. They want to hug on you. They want to be compassionate. A gold parent is much more rule-based. They're much more disciplinarians. It's like, get the work done, then you can have fun. But if the work not done, your room needs to be clean. You need to follow the rules. And then you have the green parent, and the green parent is very intellectual. And because they're intellectual, they want to know, did you do your research on that? What type of data? If you're bringing something to me that you want me to do, have you Are you presenting it in a way that it even makes sense? Because the thing about a green, things have to logically make sense to them. If it doesn't, they're not doing it. They're just not. And so for a kid, when they just say, well, I just want to go here. Well, why you want to go? Mm-hmm. What are you going to be doing there? Mm-hmm. What's the purpose?
So, okay.
And orange fathers or orange parents are much more fly by the seat of their pants. Mm-hmm. They're not rule oriented. Like we can break a rule. That's okay, but we're gonna make sure that we get it right the next time. And they are much more hands on. They want to be playful. They want to do things that's spontaneous. So I can remember my father. My father was not an orange, but he would do orange things sometimes. Mm-hmm. So he would get us and pile us in the car when it would be dusk out. And we would be thinking, oh, okay, where are we going now? Mm-hmm. And he would take us to the park where nobody was at the park and we could play till we was just about to fall out. And that was spontaneous. We didn't know it was going to happen. Mm-hmm. It was something that was fun because oranges like fun. Mm-hmm. They like fun. So they definitely want to make sure their children experience fun. So no matter what they're doing,
but what if the kid is not an orange? What if the kid is another color? I mean,
but a kid is still gonna enjoy that moment. Okay. No matter who they are. So even like when I go into daycares, if I go into a daycare, I can tell which kid is which color. Because blue kids are going to be the talkative ones. They're going to be talking to everybody and socializing. Mm-hmm. The gold kid is going to be cleaning up after everybody. They're going to make sure the blocks are put back and all of that is cool. Right. The green kid is in the corner someplace reading a book or playing a video by themselves. Mm-hmm. And then the orange kid is the one taking the blocks and throwing it at people.
Wow.
So as a parent, it's important to know your child.
What about the blue kid? Did you say the blue kid?
Yeah, the blue kid is a social one. They're going to be talking.
Oh, that's the one. Okay.
Yeah, they're going to be talking. Because I have a lot of blue in me.
Right.
But as a kid, I used to get in trouble for talking too much. They would say that I talk too much. And so I would be in school. And
so blue is the dominant of you, or that's the...
My blue and my green are tied.
Okay, and the green is what?
Green is the intellectual one.
Okay.
So I'm the one that likes to study and research, and I do like my space and be by myself.
Yeah.
So it's like an internal battle going on. Sometimes I love people, sometimes I don't.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay, so one of the things that intrigued me once I found out you were here and why I was looking forward to getting you on the show is because of this book, He's Not a Statistic. The 12 Laws of Mothers. For single mothers.
Raising
black males. For one, let's talk about the preface behind He's Not a Statistic.
Oh, my goodness. That was such a... Well, the reason that I even came up with that title was twofold. One, the original title was 12 Laws for Single Mothers Raising Black Males. Then I met the guy who was like the guru for self-publishing. And one of the things he said in the training was, don't start your book title with a number. He says, because when it's in the bookstore on the shelves, you won't know where to find it. Because sometimes books are alphabetized. So if it's a number, the people in the bookstore may put it at the front or they may put it at the back.
But you got to search more.
Mm-hmm. He says, so don't do that. And so that was the reason I said, I got to come up with another title there. Mm-hmm. And so He's Not a Statistic was when I was married to my son's father and we got a divorce. And when we got a divorce, people kept telling me that, well, you a single mother, so, the statistics say this about children, especially black males raised by single parents, like what that would be like. He would be getting in trouble, that he may have a run-in with the law, he may have problems academically, all that kind of stuff. And I just was like, not my son. He ain't going to be a statistic. Not that kind of statistic. And so that's where the title came from. Because I was not, that wasn't even an option. So I just went about what I had to do to raise my son. And one of the things that I hear women say a lot, well, I'm both mama and daddy. No, you're not.
Okay.
You're not a daddy. I'm not a father. I am a mother. I had to do some of the things that a father might have had to do, but I never take claim for being a father.
Mm-hmm.
So like on Mother's Day or on Father's Day, sometimes people will text you, Happy Father's Day. Well, I'm not a father, so don't send me no
Right.
Happy Father's Day. Because it's not my day. I have
get
my
it.
day in May.
Mm-hmm.
So I really believe that it is important for women to really understand what it is to know that as a young man, he needs men in his life.
Mm-hmm.
And so I purposefully sought out men to assist me. My father was, of course, a great help. My brothers, I have a brother that's deceased, and that particular brother, we're 3 years apart. He treated my son more like his son. You know, even when he moved away, he moved to Florida, and he would come home to his basketball games and surprise him.
Yeah, my uncle did the same thing for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, and then his father's brother, once he found out that his brother was not really stepping up and doing the things that he should do, he called me one day and says, I'm just letting you know that after today, I have officially put myself on uncle support. And I was like, oh, okay. And so from that day to this, anything that I needed from our sale, anything that I wanted, he would help. You know, like the first car I bought him, he sent money to get the car.
Good stuff.
Yeah, he was just there. And even now, he has a great relationship with his uncle. And I'm so glad because he's not just a product of me. He's a product of me and his father. So I'm glad that he has a connection to that part of his DNA.
Good stuff. I think we're getting into the 12 laws. So now, should I get them or do you know them by heart?
Of course I don't know him by heart. I wrote that book in 2013.
Okay, so let's get into these 12 laws.
Okay.
And some of them are self-explanatory, but I do want to get your blurb on each law. The first law is train up a child.
Ooh, that's so good. Train up a child really comes from Scripture.
Yep.
Proverbs 4:6. Train up a child in the way that they go, and when they get an adult, they will not depart from it. And so my son wrote the foreword to the book.
Oh, really?
Yes.
That's good stuff.
And so one of the things that he talks about is his relationship with God.
Okay.
And so I talk about, as a parent, it is your responsibility to introduce them to God. And not just by taking them to church, but it's how you live your life. So my son saw me praying. We prayed together as a family.
Right.
And we pray together now. So, he's 28 and grown and gone on his own. And sometimes when things are getting tough or he's got something going on, he'll call me and say, can we pray every morning for the next month? Absolutely.
And that's why he's doing so well.
Yeah,
doing so well.
I just believe that. He says, and so I remember when he was in middle school, I think I tell this story in the book. When he was in middle school, he came home one day because he went to school. He was the only black child in his middle school. And he came home one day and he says, Ma, you don't have to be in church to preach. And I says, why you say that? He says, because at lunch today, somebody said that they was an atheist. And he says, well, let me tell you about why I ain't an atheist. And I got to telling them about how good God is. And that's in middle school.
That's
I was
good stuff.
Okay, you did that. I was so excited and happy that he's not influenced by what somebody else's belief is. He can stand in his own belief system. So,
okay, law number 2. Discover your son's passion and use it for your advantage.
Ooh, yes. You have to find out what your children love. And they may not love what you love. That's the first thing. Because a lot of times, especially with men, fathers, especially if they were in sports, they want their children to do sports. But what if your son is an amazing singer? And you don't like musicals, but they do. You have to find out and discover what their passion is and then use it to your advantage. So for me, my son loved basketball. I mean, he loved it. He used to sleep with his basketball. So when he came to me and said, I want to play on this AAU team, this is how much it's going to cost, I said, in order for me to participate with my time and my money, you have to bring me a 3.5 or better. Period. And so it was no problem at first until he met girls. And he came home with a 3.3. And I shut it down.
Mm.
I put him on punishment. I made him go to all the practices, and I made him go to all the games, but he could not play.
Mm.
And everybody was mad at me. The coaches were mad at me. My daddy was mad at me. My brothers were mad at me. And I said, I don't get in your business on how you coach. Don't get in my business about how I parent.
Well, it's kind of in their business on how they can't coach them up.
Well, let me say this. I know what I'm working with.
Yeah.
And as the parent, just like you want me to support what you're doing, because I give my money to your program. Mm-hmm. I get him there. He's there on time. And I made sure he didn't miss no instruction or anything. But he could not play until that grade point came back up. Because I think too often the academics are put on the back burner. Because for me, a 3.0 is cool, but it ain't what he's capable of. Mm-hmm. I knew what I was working with, so I worked it. And so I remember my father said, but he's still on the honor roll. He's not on my honor roll. And since I'm the one spending the money, I'm the one feeding them, buying clothes, he got to bring me a 3.5 or better. So people thought it was harsh. But then we got to the point that he graduated valedictorian of his class. He was, in the year he graduated high school, Nike's student athlete of the year. Nike came and had a big to-do event for him, had posters of him everywhere. It was all on the news. Yeah, but that came from me not wavering on what my expectations are. And so, as soon as he got his grades back, he was able to play again. It was wonderful.
I mean, I can see that in a way because even though I'm a sports guy, so my boys were athletes by default. But I also put Ethan in acting class because I saw something different. So when I hear discover your son's passion, I mean, he's a natural with certain things. Certain things come. I mean, he's a lot smarter. He got that old soul in him. He's I can see that. So me not knowing even acting, I did see that, and I was obedient to even putting him in acting class. But then it seemed like he had the drive, and I don't know if there was anything else I need to do. But then Buford built this big old high school with this arts and performance building, and so last year I started putting him in those drama classes, film classes, video classes, to see what's gonna spark. Now I probably can see it a lot more if I jump into, because I don't really. One of my flaws in parenting is helping with homework. I mean, so with that, I know I'm missing something, and I always try to dot the I's and cross the T's, right? But I do think I am missing something by not being able to help him with his homework as often as I want to, with this, with that passion, and discover your son's passion. So I do see that. So law 3. Never badmouth the absent father.
Never. And I say that for a couple of reasons. The first reason is that it's your fault that they are the parent. It was your choice to be with that person. And number 2, that person is the only person with you who could have made that particular child. Somebody else's DNA would have made somebody else. So I always say this about my ex. Even though we did not work as a couple, I thank God for his presence in my world, because without him I would not have a Marcel, and Marcel was the greatest gift I had outside of salvation.
That's good stuff.
So I never badmouthed him, because at the end of the day, that's still his family member. And I don't want him to feel any negativity about his family member based on what I've said. So I made him, on Father's Day, still always send him a Father's Day card, or make him a card, or we buy him a gift. I always honored his presence, because the word tells you to honor your mother and your father, so your days will be long. So I tell women, don't shorten your child's days based on them and you allowing them to be disrespectful to their father. And so I've had women say, well, what is he trifling? That's still his daddy.
Yeah, you're teaching him also not to honor his dad, or teaching
Right.
her not to honor.
Right.
You know, so yeah, he or she has to make that decision themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, still the mom and their dad. Good stuff. Law 4. Be an example of real life.
Oh my God, I know so many women that will not do anything but parent. Life, when we were talking earlier about balance, one of the things my son said to me, because I did marry again, and one of the things.
How long were you married the first time?
2 years.
2 years, okay.
And then 14 years the second time.
Okay.
So I have 2 husbands.
Two husbands? But at least the first time was with your son's dad.
Absolutely.
Right? Okay.
Mm-hmm. So my second husband was a pastor.
Okay.
And one of the things my son said to me that really warmed my heart, he says, you know, I really want a relationship like you and he called his stepdad dad. He says, because y'all laugh and y'all act like y'all like each other. He said, I go over to my dad's house and him and his wife act like they don't like each other. They don't talk, they don't laugh, they don't, you know. I wanted to have him have an example that he could see of what a real life looks like. Real life is not just me being your parent. I am still a woman. I'm a business owner.
So did you love and like your first husband?
Yes, I did. But he was 11 months old when we broke up.
Oh, okay.
So he never saw us together as a couple.
Okay.
So he didn't get to see that because he was too young. But when I was dating, he saw me date. He saw appropriate dating. He saw someone come to pick me up, take me out, drop me off. Because some people, as soon as you like them, then they moving in. No. And I would be real honest and transparent. I used to think that because I had a son, I did not have to think about it as much because, you know, with a girl, you wouldn't want a man over your girl because you don't want him to touch her or look at her or whatever. Well, men look at boys too.
True. Yeah.
So you got to be cognizant.
You gotta be careful with that.
Well, you have to be careful, period. And then you don't want to show that you Miss Lucy loose. You know, you just, everybody get a time to come over and spend the night. No. So, yeah, I wanted to be an example of what dating is, about what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, because me and my son talk about everything.
That's good stuff. That's good stuff. Okay, Law 5. Demand and give respect.
Respect is such a huge thing, especially for boys.
It's huge for me. Absolutely.
It's huge because, and this goes over to when you're dating or when you have a relationship. A lot of times the reasons that relationships don't work is because men need to feel respected. Women need to feel loved. When a woman feels unloved, she'll do something disrespectful. And when a man feels disrespected, he'll do something that's unloving. So if you don't put in your son what it feels like to be respected, he won't know what to expect when he gets a woman to be respected. And so you have a lot of men who aren't doing what it means to be respected. They're not even in a spot that you would want to respect them. They're not doing anything to stand up as a man and be respected. And so I respected him. And I demanded that he respected me. And so, of course, as a child, we really didn't have that many. I really can count on one hand how many times I had a problem out of him. But once he got older and I was moving, transitioning from being just the parent to now he's going to be an adult. I remember he had a coach when my father was dying. My father was in hospice, and the coach and the team was in the state championship. And my son opted not to go to one practice because we didn't know if my father was going to make his transition. So he wanted to be at the house with the family. And so the next day when he went to school, the coach told him, I need you at these practices. You're our starting point guard, and we're in a state championship, and this is important. I don't care who dying.
Wow.
So I politely, when he said that, turned to get my purse and my keys because I was on my way to see him. And my son said, no, you can't go see him. And I went, what do you mean I can't go see him? And he says, because at the end of the day, you can go up there and tell him off. But he says, but you going to leave, I'm still going to have to deal with him. So let me deal with it.
How did he deal with it?
He prayed about it. And he went on and did what he needed to do. They did win the state championship that year. And then that summer, he came home one day and he says, the coach not going to be there no more. I said, what you mean he ain't going to be there no more? He got another job someplace else.
God took care of him.
I love it. And so it taught me that as a man, he has to be a man. And sometimes as mothers, we don't allow them to be men because we want to protect. We want to take care of everything, and we can't. They have to be able to stand on their own 2 feet. So it was very important that I got that lesson. But then even as an adult, I remember when he got his first car, I called him and asked him, I was going someplace and my car was down. So I said, well, can I use your car to make a run? And he went, where you go? I said, oh, that's okay. And I didn't say nothing else to him. I called me an Uber. I went and did what I had to do. And I came back home. He was like, Ma, you ain't have to do that. I was just asking you. I said, I ain't talked to him for 3 days. And when I did talk to him, when I was ready, because I knew if I had to talk to him earlier, I would have cussed him out. And I didn't want to cuss him out. I wanted him to get it. So when I was ready to talk, I said, come here for a minute. And he was like, what? I said, let me tell you something. If I ever feel like I am inconveniencing you, I won't ask you for shit. And please know, I spent 27 years on the planet without a Marcel. Marcel has never spent a day on the planet without a Sabrina. You don't know what it feels like. Trust me, you don't want to.
Good stuff.
So no, we never had that problem anymore.
Well, whatever get the point across. But I am huge on respect. I mean, and it may be, I haven't seen it yet, but I'm so huge on it, it may be to a fault, I feel like when I am disrespected, then it brings down my level of manhood, right? When I am disrespected in the parenting role, it brings down my level of fatherhood, right? And I never want to be disrespected in that way because I don't want those levels ever brought down because you ever heard the saying, if you play with a dog long enough, he gonna lick you in the mouth? Never want to be licked in the mouth. I mean, don't play with me like that. And I don't know. I think it's I don't know. Even with talking with certain people, if I feel like they may say something disrespectful, I might cut the conversation off. So I give that respect. So I can always
expect it. I expect it. I am not. I don't cuss people out. I tell people all the time, you'll never see me out in the world off my square because it's my square, and I like how I handle my square. You're not gonna have enough power to get me off my square. You're never gonna make me cuss you out. You're never gonna make me call you out your name unless I'm calling you honey or sweetie. But I'm never gonna do it because I control me. I don't let outside forces control me. Now, do I get mad? Absolutely. Do things get up under my skin? Absolutely. But they don't have to know it. Because then they know they got power.
Yep.
Ain't giving it to them.
Yep. So, I feel like there's some disrespect coming. You got to hit it head on. So, let's see here. Law number 6. Teach what it means to be a black male in this society.
Ooh, that was a biggie because, we live in a society that is racist. We live in a society that is disrespectful to black men. And so I can remember when Marcel started driving, we were living in the suburb at the time, and I bought him a car. And so I told him, I says, you are going to be stopped. You are. So these are the things that you have to do. And so I would make sure that he had his license and his registration and insurance together where he could quickly access it. I didn't want you looking in the glove compartment. I don't want you looking in through a bag because those movements could cost you your life. I need you to, soon as you see the sirens and the lights. Immediately pull over. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Be respectful. I said, and then as soon as you see the light, call me, put me on speaker, and sit me in the seat. And I never did that necessarily to hear what the police did. I did it because I wanted him to feel like somebody was with them. Because I know when you feel like you're by yourself and you're afraid, you may do something that you may not normally do. But because he knew I was there, it provided him a level of calm and confidence. And so to this day, he's 28. If he gets pulled over, he calling me, put me in the seat.
That's good stuff. Never thought about that.
Yes, because and I told him, not only are you going to be driving while black, you're driving while dark skinned and black. Because he my color. So, yeah, it's just going to happen.
Yeah. Absolutely. I definitely agree with that. I know when I'm pulled over, always respectful. If I get anything, if I get anything from the officer that feel kind of off, I stop looking at him. I look straight ahead, give him everything he needs, get my ticket so I can go. Because at that point, I realize it's got to be something else there. I'm not trying to spark it. I don't want you disrespecting me. I'm going to give you what you want, and I'm going to go. And it's sad. It really is sad that you got officers out there that's looking for something to get you out the car with, looking for something to charge you with, just looking for. I mean, I don't even look at them. If it's that way, I don't even look at them. But my whole demeanor should let them know, I'm not fucking with you. Don't fuck with me, right? Get my ticket and go. I'd rather pay the ticket than
right. So, but what you pulling me over for? And that ain't the time. Because at the end of the day, I don't care if you have a gun. They got a license to use theirs. And if you seem like you are going to be belligerent and you're just...
I tell you, I've been looking for dash cams to put inside my son's car. Because I do not want it to happen. One of the things I hate is for something to happen that I can't fix. You know, something to happen even to my son. He's out there in Nebraska. I mean, you just got to pray and trust God.
Yes,
but
you do.
I say to myself, what if I had cameras on each side of the windshield, you know, that automatically uploads the video when it happens? I mean, I tell you, it's crazy. Okay, so the next law 7, infuse the concepts of coachability, confidence, and compassion.
The first, coachability, there's a study that was done by a group called Leadership IQ. Leadership IQ is an international firm that studies trends for leaders. And they said in their study that leaders says it's hard to find and keep good help. So they did this massive study to look at the top 5 reasons why people fail at their jobs. And the number 1 reason was coachability. Because how do you get better if can't nobody tell you? So you have to be open to feedback. You have to be able to take feedback gracefully. You have to be able to separate what is said from how it's said. Because a person may not know how to say it, but it's still valid. So I talk a lot about coachability. I talk a lot, are you coachable? And people will say they are, but so I've had staff that I'll go, well, remember when I asked you in the interview, were you coachable? And they go, I said, well, this is getting ready to be a coachable moment. And I began to give feedback because people need to know. And a lot of times we don't tell people, but then expect them to do differently.
That's good stuff.
So coachability is huge. And then confidence is huge for men. Especially black men, because in our society it is always stuff coming to chip away at your confidence. So I remember when Marcel was maybe in high school, and they had won some game, and I took the team out, and they were all running through the restaurant going, "We're number one, we're number one." And I said, "You ain't got to do all of that. You ain't got to do all of that." And an older black man, pulled me over to the side. He says, "No, let them have that. They need that. Don't squash it, because there's gonna be too many places in life that they're gonna have it naturally squashed by the powers that be." So when they are in a space to be confident, let them be confident and teach the difference between being confident and conceited. So my son is confident.
And that's where a balance come in as well. Because I had an uncle used to tell me, he was like, Alan, if you're good in school, it'll show. You don't have to say anything. I mean, if you're good in sports, you're a good athlete, it'll show. But sometime, like that time, I mean, it's okay
to celebrate.
You know, so that's that balance coming in.
But he's not, you know, I don't want him to be the type of person that, oh yeah, of course, that's, of course I do that. Of course I'm good at that. Of course I, you know, no, he's humble. And it's not a false humility.
Right.
But he's humble enough to say that I ain't got to be, you know, spurting all my greatness to everybody every time I see him. But I'm confident in what I do. And so in the space that he's in now, a lot of times people will say to him that he's cocky. I think you're too cocky. No, you got to know the difference between cocky and confidence. Because he's confident, but he is respectful. If he is coming to the table with something, he's done his research. And I used to tell him, you have a right as a grown-up to have your opinion. You just got to know how to communicate that opinion.
How to express it.
You can't belittle people or talk over people, but you have a right to your truth. And so I don't care who it is. It could be the president. If you have a viewpoint, you have a right to express that viewpoint.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's all in communication. What I realized with even some men, let alone, you know, sons, is we have to learn how to communicate effectively. You know, a lot of times we can't find the word, and that's in parenting as well, where we're not communicating effectively. So what happens is we communicate the way, I guess, we came up with, which are expression, which fighting or
well, aggression really with men tend to be, you know, that whole don't be soft, don't be, you know, and so that's where compassion came from.
Okay.
Because compassion, you have to care for people. You have to care for people. You can't walk around like this brute and, you know, I'm an athlete. No, you have intellect, you have feelings, and learn how to communicate your feelings. And it doesn't mean that you're soft. If, like, I remember his godfather passed and he cried like a baby. And that don't mean you soft. That means you're human. And yeah, it hurts you when he left here. And so I spend a lot of time talking about compassion and how you treat people and how you care for people. So even in his role now, and he's leading a team, he's very concerned about how they're doing. You know, he's concerned about their self-care because we're living in a time where all of us are dealing with differences and losses and the pandemic and all that. So he's compassionate. But I remember once we were being interviewed, he and I, on a podcast or radio show, and the guy made a joke. A guy called in and says, "Well, I see here your mother talks about compassionate, so don't that make you seem like you weak?" His answer was so profound.
Okay, what did he say?
He said, "Well, you know, I tell you this. Everybody wants to be loved. I don't care who you are. You want to be loved. You want to be loved by your woman." He says that in order to have true love, you got to have vulnerability, and compassion goes with that. He was 21. I was like, I didn't even know that. Where do you get that from? That was so profound. But he says you absolutely need it to have love, and everybody wants to feel love.
That's good stuff.
That was good.
That was great.
That's his. I'm going to give that to him. I wasn't mad. I was like, ooh, I'm going to use it, though.
Okay, law 8, and I see this in something else you said. Make sure education is important to him.
To him. So education was very important to us. Mm-hmm. And I remember when he would get good grades and he would come home and he would be so excited to share them with me. Mm-hmm. And I remember one day just saying to him, how do you feel when you look at those grades? Because I wanted him to get excited for himself. Mm-hmm. Because if tomorrow I'm gone, I want you to still have that feeling that you can generate for yourself, that it's important to you. So education has always been important to him, mm-hmm. even if it's not important to me. But of course it's important to me. But he doesn't seek to just make me happy. He's seeking and chasing his own goals and his own feelings of worth and value around that for him. And so that's very important to me, that he got it for himself. So I never had to have conversations about like, well, how was school today? Or because I knew he was on top of it.
Mm. Hey, that's great because it was important to him.
It was important to him.
And you instilled that. Law number 9. Use intellect to handle conflict.
Oh, that's so good. Oh my goodness. That is such a huge thing, especially for men. And I ain't even going to say
yeah, I was about to say
men.
This was going to speak to me right here. Because it took me, I was grown and married, to understand how to handle conflict. Mm-hmm. So as people, we're going to have conflict. Mm-hmm. But you do not have to become aggressive because you have conflict. Mm-hmm. And so my son used to always ask me, when was it okay to hit somebody? Mm. And I would always say, show me you can think. Mm. Show me you can think. And so one time, and this particular day was just so fascinating how this all worked out. I used to teach violence prevention curriculum. Mm-hmm. And so I was presenting this particular day to all the heads of the school district, the hospitals, the police department. And it was this big muckety muck. It was at this really nice place, really swank, over the water. So, it's a big deal. Mm-hmm. And I'm the speaker. Mm-hmm. And while I'm speaking, my phone is blowing up. So I gave them an activity and I get to my phone and it was my son's school. Said, you got to come get him. He done had a fight. He's being, and I'm like, he had a fight? Who he fighting? So I couldn't wait to get to him. So when I got to him, and I says, well, what happened? He says, somebody said your mama is fat and black. And I clocked him. And I went, I said, let me ask you a couple of questions. I said, he said your mama was fat. I say, every scale I step on, the way, and I was 100 pounds heavier than I am today. Mm-hmm. And I said, every scale I step on, the weight comes up as obese. Obese is another word for, and he said fat. I said, so that was a fact. Mm-hmm. I says, and then he said that I'm black. I said, have you looked at me lately? He said, yeah. I said, so that too was a fact. I said, now let me answer some other questions. I said, so the fact that I am fat and I am black, does it mean that you don't love me? And he said, no. I said, does it mean that I'm not a good mother? He said, no. I said, does it mean that little boy would be in a better place just for being around me? Mm-hmm. And he said, no. I said, so never allow somebody to get you off your square for a fact. Yeah. So the next time somebody told him that his mama was fat and black, he said, I'm glad you could see. That is using some intellect to handle that problem.
But the thing about it is that when I tell people that story, they'll go, well, I said, so the problem really didn't start with the kid. It started with you. Because if you can't take the fact that somebody calls you fat and black and that's what you are, then how you modeling that?
Yeah, but I'm going to go back to law 5 on this. Demand and give respect.
Okay.
So for me,
but
it's a lot more in there than that.
But this is the thing. At the end of the day, everybody is not going to respect you.
No.
And how you deal with it it's not getting you put out of school. It's not getting you. Yeah, you got to be able to understand that I can't control what somebody sees and says about what they see. So it might not be respectful, but it still was a fact.
Yeah, it was a fact.
That's just like now.
There's a lot of facts, right, that you don't have to express. It's somewhere down the road where that guy felt like he can say that to Marcel. Somewhere down the road. To me, I don't even want to give him that down the road. I want to demand that respect at all times. So if I see, I mean, it's possible, but that it happened, you know. So listen. Clocking that dude, I'm like, listen, clock him and make sure you do it in front of the whole crowd. No. Make sure everybody sees it. No. Because this is about respect now.
You know, let me say this.
Okay.
It's probably because I am a therapist. And so one of the things that I say all the time is that it is wrong to expect rational behavior out of an irrational mind.
Okay.
Because sometimes you're dealing with people that may have a mental illness. They may have a struggle that you don't know that they're dealing with. And you're expecting something out of them that you're never going to get.
He wouldn't have been that close to me. If he's irrational like that, he wouldn't have been that close to me to disrespect me like that.
Why not?
Because I demand a certain level of respect. If I feel like this guy would disrespect me in some kind of way, he won't even be that close to me.
Well, it depends on where you are. I mean, like they're in school. They might be sitting next to each other in class. He don't have a choice of where he sits.
Yeah, but that conversation got to arouse from somewhere. It has to start from somewhere. It wouldn't even start it for him to even start talking, even thinking about my mama.
Well, I just think that sometimes, you know, you have people that where they come from, where they're coming from.
If we're in class, we talking about the Pythagorean theorem. We're talking about, you know.
I don't know what school you in, because in school they talking about all kind of stuff.
If we're in class,
if they in
and
class,
I'm paying attention in class,
they still talking about all kind of stuff. Now I know I've sat in class, and we weren't talking nothing about what they was talking about in class.
Okay,
right next to me. We be talking, girl, did you see so and so?
That's girl.
No, boys do the same thing. This is my thing. I know that men are not sitting in class only talking about what they see in class.
No, but we're not going to be talking about, well, for me. Now,
for you. You can only talk for
this.
you. Yeah.
Yeah. Watch this, because I did had to address my son. Because he was like, Dad, they're just not going to roll me. They're not gonna roast me. That's what he said. They're not gonna roast me. So I was like, well, why did you have to respond back to that? And why are you even putting yourself in a position where you and somebody else is roasting, that you can't take the roast, and now here you are fighting? You know, why you even put yourself in that position? So I did.
And what he said?
Well, that's what they do all the time. They roast each other, and you know. So I didn't do a whole lot of roasting when I came up. You know, I had fun, but you know, I wasn't a roaster. So I had to look at that in a different way. But they wouldn't be close to me. I wouldn't even give them an opportunity. Now, fun and game is fun and game, but I think there is a limit. I mean, there's a line.
People cross lines all day, every day. Yeah. And they start out with, it was, I remember my son and his first cousins. They started off playing and joking and laughing, and next minute they know they fighting because somebody done got upset about something. So you're dealing with a lot of people and a lot of differences, and you don't know what somebody is going through, what done triggered them. And I'll give this example. I think I told it in the book, but my son, when he was in high school, he got stabbed by a girl. And the day that they called me and said that he had been stabbed, and then and the police was there, and they wanted to ask that I want to press charges. And so my thing was, well, I don't even know what happened, so I can't just say yes.
Mm-hmm.
I said, let me talk to Marcel. He got stabbed in the hand. He was okay. But I said, so what happened? First I asked him, do you want to press charges? And he says, no. I says, well, why not? He says, because she didn't come to school today with the intent to stab me. Mm-hmm. I said, well, what happened? And he says, well, I was walking by her and I kicked her book bag and she attacked me. And so as she attacked me, I was trying to hold her and she fell. When she fell, she came back up and she had something and she stabbed him in his hand. Mm-hmm. And so, they let her go. They took her someplace and we didn't press charges. But he kept nagging at me about this kick in her book bag. Mm-hmm. So I kept thinking, where was the book bag? Mm-hmm. Was it on the ground next to her locker? He walked past, he kicked it, but then that don't make sense to me that she would just go ballistic if he kicked her book bag and it was on the ground. So I asked him later that night, I said, where was her book bag when you kicked it? Mm-hmm. He said, on her back. Mm-hmm. You took your big old foot mm-hmm. off the ground and kicked her book bag.
Yeah, wow.
And so I remember then saying...
So she felt attacked.
Of course. She felt something. I would feel something. Mm-hmm. I look up and you got your... And he liked her.
Yeah, obviously.
He liked her. Mm-hmm. Okay, so really... And so I said to him, in my head I went, because people used to always say, Marcel is so wise. He's got that old soul. He's so smart. I says, but he's still a kid. Mm-hmm. He's still a kid. And he still do kid things sometimes. And that was one of them. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, he was on punishment and all that. And he was the one that got stabbed. But you can't be taking your big old size 10 feet and kicking somebody in the back.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So I'm done with him.
Boys will be boys.
Yes.
Okay, Law 10. Be a leader.
Oh, that was a biggie because I just did not want him to be the type of person that would go with the wind. Whatever the crowd was doing, he was going to do. Yeah. You got to make a decision on how you want to show up in the world. Mm-hmm. You have to make a decision. And I started really young, so I have several stories in that particular chapter. But one of them was when he was maybe about 8 or 9. Mm-hmm. He was playing on a little basketball team. And I was coming back to get him. And he was getting dressed. I heard him talking to another kid, and the kid was putting on these chains. And Marcel said, well, what are you putting those on for? And the guy said, well, this represents such and such rapper. And da-da-da. He says, well, you shouldn't want to be like the rapper. You should want to be like you. Mm. And I remember going, yes. Mm-hmm. And he didn't know I was there. So that was like, yes, he's getting it. Mm-hmm. And then just throughout his life, he just was never, I don't want to do what everybody do. And so I remember when he was about 12, we were having a conversation and he says, I believe in peer pressure. And I said, really? Why? He says, because people really can't force you to do what's not in you. Unless they're holding a gun to your head, but And I said, well, give me an example. He says, well, if I'm in a room and it's 50 people and 50 people are smoking weed, I don't smoke weed. So I'm not going to smoke weed. And none of those people are going to make me smoke weed. Because that's not in me.
It has to be instilled in you.
And it has to be something that
has to be, that discipline
yes,
has to be instilled in you.
Yeah, and I said, you have to do what you do. You got to do you, boo. And so he really is a leader. He's just really a natural leader. He really is. Mm-hmm. But I always said to him, what is your thought around it? Mm-hmm. What do you want to do? Mm-hmm. Why do you wear this T-shirt? Why do you read this book? And so reading is major.
Oh, yeah. And that's part of the installation. Like, when I say instill, it's more than just saying, don't go out there and smoke weed. Mm-hmm. Don't smoke weed because everybody else smoking weed. I mean, it's saying that probably 100 times, doing something else probably 100 times, and you have done that, I'm sure, over the years. So it was instilled in him.
Absolutely.
Through you and on how you raised him. So
the books were like when he got into high school, maybe middle school. Every summer I gave him a book list, and he had to read these books. And so the first summer he was like, oh, okay. And so one of the first books that I gave him to read was The Measure of a Man by Sidney Poitier. When I say that book was so profound for him, because I remember him telling his team members, man, you need to read this book. This is the book you need to read, and giving it to people. And so even now, he's a ferocious reader now. He reads way more books than I read. And he reads fiction books. He really likes documentaries and, things that are about real people. So he read about Steve Jobs' book, and he just reads a lot. And so he probably easily reads about 20 books a week.
A week?
Yeah, he's reading.
Is he fast reading? What they call it, speed reading? Speed reading. Because I was like, listen, I think I need to learn speed reading.
Yeah, he reads pretty fast, but then he doesn't. He's not a TV watcher. If he watches TV, it's really like a documentary. Like when he's in Iowa right now. So when I went to Iowa for Thanksgiving, we watched the Godfather trilogy because he had never seen it. And I was like, oh my God, I'm sorry that I haven't exposed you to the Godfather. And so I knew he would really like it. And so when we were in the second one, it was a line, it was some kind of line that the Godfather, not Marlon Brando, but Al Pacino's character said, and he was like, that was such a dog line. I was like, it's tons of dog lines in here. And so it was a really good time just watching that with him and watching how he processed it and the things that he put in his chat with his friends about it, and because he really is an intellectual. He just is,
It's good stuff. That is great.
Yeah.
Law 11. Obtain positive male support system.
Oh, yes. And I had plenty. I am so grateful. I have a cousin, and I say every woman, especially if you have a black son, you need a big black man. And he needs to be big and black. And that was my cousin. I have a cousin named Corey. Corey is my first cousin's husband, but they've been together 30-some years. But he was the guy that I would call, and I would say, Marcel did such and such and such. And he would say, where he at? I said, he in his room. I'm on my way. He would come from his job, come to my house, tighten him up, and go back to work. And I hear people say things like, well, you don't want to whoop your children. You don't want. I said, well, I did. I put my hands on my child from time to time. And in my thinking, it was a part of the discipline that I used. But I love the relationship he has with Corey today, because he knows Corey loves him. And if he's troubled about something or if he needs to talk, he calls Corey, because they have that level of a relationship. And that type of support when he was little has translated to a man that he respects and follows and knows that is there for him. And so I've had several men over the years who have been that with my son. So and I saw it.
Absolutely. So would you consider that the same as a village?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But I know some women that, they don't value the male's presence as much as they should. And so I remember when I finished my book and I was speaking, I was speaking about it and, traveling. And I remember a lady saying to me, because in Marcel's foreword, he says, today my mother is my everything. He says, but soon she will hand me off in marriage and she will no longer be my everything. And that's the way it's supposed to be. So I had a lady read that and come up to me after I spoke crying. And I said, well, what's wrong? She said, I don't ever want to not be my son's everything. I said, then something's wrong with you. Something's wrong with you. Because there are things that your son is going to need that you should never provide unless you're nasty.
Mm-hmm.
And he needs to have his own relationship with his own woman. And you say you believe the word tells you very clearly that he will leave his family and cleave to his new family. And so many women don't teach men that, so men aren't prepared to be a man in his own family.
That's good stuff.
So I kept saying that after I wrote that book, I said I should write a book called Raising Husbands. Because women are so integral in what men think about being a husband. Especially if they don't have the example of the man in the home. So as the mother, what are you teaching?
You know, but speaking of that, I think that's definitely key, because even in fatherhood and talking about fatherhood, sometimes, you know, I may not have all the answers for my son. So I have to go to my uncle, you know, or go to someone I look up to and respect that I believe is a good father, you know, to get an answer and find out how did they approach a particular situation. So that male support is even good for fathers.
It is good for all of us. And I know for me, especially being a woman and having a son, I remember, and I'm sure the story is in the book, but I remember my son came in my room, and he might have been about 5 or 6.
Mm-hmm.
But he came in one morning and he says, "Mom, what does it mean when your private part gets real strong?" And I went, "I have no idea because I don't have one." And so I said, "You better call your papa." And I called my daddy. I said, "Your grandson's finna call you and ask you about his penis. Be ready." You know. But I could not, that was not my space. And I didn't try to occupy it.
Yeah, that support was needed. Absolutely.
Okay. And so sometimes we'll say things that we think, but that may not be the real.
Right.
I've never woke up with that issue.
Right.
So I needed to talk. He needed to talk to somebody who has.
Right. It happens. Clockwork. Law 11.
No, 12.
Oh, Law 12. Yes.
12.
I'm looking at 12 saying 11. Law 12. Model and teach effective communication.
Didn't you say that earlier?
I sure did.
You said communication was big.
It is. Because you got to learn how to communicate. Oh, handling problems. Yeah, handling conflicts. A lot of times we don't handle conflict well because we don't know how to effectively communicate that thing.
There are so many elements to communication. And so that's why I talk about modeling good communication. Because
what do you mean by that? Modeling,
okay, the number one way to teach a behavior or a social skill is by modeling. Because people do what they see you do, not what you say. So I could say, "Oh, don't cuss," but then if every time you see me I'm cussing, you gonna do what I do, not what I say. So you have to be a model of the things that you want your young people to do. So like for me, goal setting and visioning is very important to me. So we would at the beginning of the week make goals. Just a list of goals for the week and put them on our refrigerator. And during the week, we would check off the stuff we'd have done. To this day, he does that.
That's good. I think that helps a lot.
It's huge. And one, because it gives you a sense of accomplishment when you can check them off. And then sometimes he would even say to me, "Ma, you got 4 things over here. You ain't even, what you doing?" So he'll check me. You know, and say, "Ma, what we doing up in here? We not doing our goals. We're not achieving our goals, and we're not."
So do you have that written down somewhere? I would like to start that. You say 20 goals in a week.
No, just start writing your goals, and so you might just have 5, and put them on a refrigerator. And during the week, when you accomplish them, scratch it off. And then at the end of the week, we would talk about it. Like we would do conversations we call high-low conversations. And we would talk about our highs for the week and our lows for the week. And so I would always start with my lows because I would want to end with my highs. But we still do that to this day.
Yeah, that is great.
And so communication is a lie. So one of the things about communication is your nonverbal communication. Mm-hmm. And so I hate when I see people out with their kids and they treat their kids like they don't like them. Mm. So my son said, and that's the one thing he said about my book because the first person I let read it was him.
So how do they do that? I mean, what are they doing?
Like their body language, like they rolling their eyes and get away from me.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Ooh. And you say you love them? Mm-hmm. Yes, sometimes I don't want to be bothered, but not with my own children. I'd be like, come here.
Really?
So it's funny because my son said the one thing that I did not say in the book that he felt was the number one thing for him is that he always felt loved. He always felt supported. Always. He says that I have friends that I could tell did not have love in their home. And that makes them act a certain way.
Yeah, love is important. Wow.
And he said that for him. Out of all the things that I said, all your laws, all good. But the most important thing to him is that he's always felt loved and supported.
That's good stuff.
Yeah. So communication, your nonverbal communication, I mean, rolling your eyes at your kid and all that. And then knowing how to listen. Listening is a skill. Hearing is a bodily function. So I can hear you, but that don't mean I was listening.
Listening is a skill.
Hearing is a bodily function. Mm-hmm.
First time I've heard that.
Thank you. It's mine.
It's yours. It's good stuff, though. I can see that because I can hear people talking to me and tune them out
completely.
Not listening.
And I tell people all the time because I tell my friends this all the time. I pay attention, but I don't. So in the moment, I'm all in. And walk away and not pay any attention to what was said and don't even remember it. Because sometimes people will say things like, well, make sure you don't tell nobody. Trust I ain't going to tell nobody because I ain't going to be thinking about it no more.
You weren't listening.
I heard you and I was into the conversation, but I'm not so into it that I'm finna carry it and take it.
Because it's a level of protection as well, I think. For me, it's a level of protection for me.
Yes.
You know, where I'm not taking in everything and everybody's problem.
It's overwhelming. And I'm a therapist, so I've learned.
Yeah, but I thought I had a problem with that because I can absolutely
that's a skill,
tune you out and not listen. But I had to learn that. You're right. I definitely had to learn that because I get distracted very easily. Right? So if I'm focused on something, if I'm reading something, if I'm watching something, if I'm doing something, and I want to complete it, and what I'm listening to is going to distract me more than helping me complete this, I mean, I would completely tune that thing out. Somebody could be talking to me, and I'm acting like I'm listening, but I have completely tuned that person out. And I thought it was
a flaw.
I thought it was a flaw.
It's a skill set.
Because I didn't always be like that.
So communication is very important in the different elements of communication. Knowing how to speak your truth and speak your honesty. Knowing how to listen. Knowing the difference when you're in a dialogue or knowing when you're just supposed to be listening. Knowing when you're just giving the information. And so one of the things that I teach is around active listening. And active listening is when you listen to completion, and when the person finishes what they said, instead of you going right into your rebuttal, repeat back to them what you heard them say. Because if you repeat back to them what you heard them say, it slows the conversation down and it makes sure that you're both on the same page about what you're talking about. Because I know most people, listening ain't their strength. So when the person says something that pricks their rebuttal, they stop listening. And in their mind, they're preparing their rebuttal or they cut the person off. So in order for the person to be able to get out completely what they're saying, you listen and then tell them back what you heard. Because I know I've done this. I've said back what I've heard. I said, that's not what I meant. Where you get that from?
Right.
I didn't mean that. It was funny. I was talking to a friend of mine on the phone before we got started, and he said, because he's a writer, and he was saying that he really loves children and writing with children. He says, because adults are boring to me, and even myself. And then I went, well, I'm sad now. And he says, why? I says, because I'm an adult and I don't want to be boring to you. He says, well, you wouldn't be on the phone with me if you were boring to me. And he says, well, why are you taking that personally? So I took what I heard and made it about something he wasn't even talking about.
Right.
Woo! I have to be vulnerable myself.
Good stuff. Well, those are the 12 laws.
Those are the 12, and that's all they getting. They ain't getting the baker's dozen. They got to get the book.
They got to get the book?
They got to get the book to get the baker's dozen. And when you get a baker's dozen, you get extra.
Okay.
So there is extra in the book.
You heard that.
Extra.
You got to get the book, and I would definitely just stay tuned because we're going to give out all the information you need to get the book. And hopefully you can get you some colors too.
Yes, you can take the test and find out what your colors are and all the different applications for it. And
all right, well, thank you, ma'am, for coming out.
Thank you for having me.
It's
I
great.
am father. I am not the father.
No, this
I
is
am the mother.
That's right.
What we're talking about.
From a mother's perspective.
From a mother's perspective, because I am a mother.
Right.
And I think I've done a pretty decent job with my son. My son, he did very well academically. Then he went on to college and he went on a full-ride basketball scholarship to a Division I school.
Which one?
He went to Houston Baptist University.
Okay.
And they told him that he would not go Division I because he's only 5'7". And I used to tell the coaches, that may be your experience, but don't put that in his head. Because if God says Division I it will be. And Division I it was. And so he completed his undergraduate in 3 years. And on the same scholarship, got his master's degree. So he was 23 when he got his master's degree in international business.
Well, the dude's smart now. I mean, you instill that in him.
Hey, it's Dr. Sabrina here, and I am the people expert, and you have been watching I Am Father from a mother's perspective. Oh, because I am a mother. I am.
Good stuff. Thank you. I think this is going to be great.